Welcome U of A alumni. Thank you for joining us this evening for our online career workshop, hosted by the University of Arizona Alumni Career and Professional Development Lab. I'm Susan Kalita, Director of the Alumni Career Lab, and I'm broadcasting live tonight from the Student Union on the beautiful University of Arizona campus in Tucson. You can see my U of A stuff in the background. I'm really excited for tonight's webinar, New Year, New Career, Job Search Strategies for Today's Market with Debbie Lewisberg. I frequently hear from alumni who are looking for a job for the first time in a long time. Maybe they've been an entrepreneur, but they're now looking to work for someone else. Or maybe they're returning to work after raising a family or having some kind of other caregiver duty. Or they've been laid off after a decade or two at the same company. So whatever the reason that you're looking for a job, if you are looking right now, know that you're not alone. And know that there are a lot of strategies that you can employ that will make you more likely to succeed. Tonight's webinar is part of a free alumni career webinar series from the Career Lab about a variety of career topics with experts. And our presentation is being recorded, and it will be archived within 1 week on the Alumni Association website for members to access anytime. You can find a link to that and more at alumnicareerlab.com. Questions are welcome at any time. You can type them into the chat box on the right side of your screen whenever you think of them. And you can also share other resources with fellow alumni or type anything else that comes to your mind on this topic. Debbie will answer your questions at the end of the webinar. If you're on Twitter, feel free to tweet at us about this webinar or other career topics using the hashtag #HireACat. We'd love to hear from you. Our speaker this evening is UA alumna Debbie Lewisberg. She's a career coach with a specialty in guiding mid-level, midlife professionals through successful career transitions towards more meaningful fitting work. She's coached professionals on a variety of topics, including effective communication, goal setting, and managing change. So huge thanks to Debbie for taking the time to be with us tonight from San Diego and for sharing her expertise with fellow Wildcats. So I'll turn things over to Debbie now, and she'll tell you a little bit more about herself and then walk you through some steps for executing your own job search.
Thanks, Susan. Thanks for that introduction. And hello, everybody. Welcome to our webinar this afternoon. I'm happy to be with you. And I wanted to just add a couple of things to what Susan had said. I come from the staffing industry, so I spent a lot of time reviewing resumes, interviewing people, placing people into permanent and temporary positions, working with a lot of clients over the years. And in fact, I started my own coaching practice about 11 years ago. And what I've found, the keys to success in all of the people that I've worked with has been, first of all, an awareness of what's going on out there in the job search world. Things change all the time, right? And there's been some pretty significant changes over the years. Not only with that awareness, but then practicing and knowing how to respond to those changes and knowing confidently how to present themselves to come across professionally. So that's what I hope that we can share with you tonight or this afternoon, is to give you that awareness and give you some strategies for approaching this job market, especially if you haven't been in it for a while. Like Susan said, if you've been out of the work world, or if you have owned a business, or if you have been in the same job for many years and you're finding yourself in that spot now of doing your own job search, I hope that you'll get some ideas tonight to help you to land more quickly and more successfully. So I am going to turn off my camera right now and get to the notes and get to what's important in our presentation here. And that is, first of all, to give you some words of wisdom to think about. I love to start our webinars with some words of wisdom. And here are 3 quotes that I found that I think pertain to today's job search. And the first one says, don't pick a job with great vacation time. Pick a career that doesn't need escaping from. Wow, I love that idea. That's from a company called Beauty Control. And that's talking about finding that next great job, right? Steve Jobs, he has some great quotes about perfect work or finding your right livelihood, so to speak. And his quote there in the middle says, your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know it when you find it. So that's speaking again to finding not just any job, but the right job for you. And then finally, author C.S. Lewis said, you are never too old to set another goal or dream a new dream. And I think that speaks to finding your dream job. So don't ever give up on the fact that yes, you can find a great job, a job you love, that ideal job, and you can find that dream job, something that you've got in mind. You can keep getting yourself closer and closer. So taking the knowledge of what you know about yourself, and I'm going to touch on that in a minute, about self-assessment, what you want, what is your dream job, what is that great job for you, and then taking that knowledge out to the job market and being able to convey those desires, those wishes that you have about your next job out there and find actually that job that's the right fit for you. So here's our agenda. Here's what we're going to talk about this evening. We're going to touch base on what is going out there in the job market, the marketing mindset that you need to have, a clear and focused direction, some components of a job search strategy. We're going to talk about some tools you might have in that marketing toolkit, and then finally wrap up talking about being organized and keeping yourself motivated. And as Susan said, we should have plenty of time at the end for any of your questions as well after we do a quick recap. So let's go ahead and get started. What exactly is going on out there? That's what I hear a lot of people say, especially those who haven't been in the job market, and they feel very intimidated because they feel like they've missed a lot of years of what's happening or what's current or what do they need to know or what does my resume need to look like. So a lot of folks do understandably come to the job market feeling intimidated. But the more you can increase that awareness of what's changed, and very importantly, what stayed the same, you will feel much better and much more confident. So here are a few things that have changed out there in the job market. First of all, social media has made a huge splash in our world, right? And that's very true of the job market. So you've got LinkedIn, you've got Facebook, you've got Twitter, you've got Pinterest, you've got Snapchat, and all of the others that go along with that. If you were only to choose one for a professional job search, I would say that is definitely LinkedIn. That is where over 95% of recruiters are going to find their next candidate. So if you're going to have an online presence, if you are comfortable with that and you only want to choose one, then I would choose definitely LinkedIn. Those others can work very well for you if you are comfortable with them. And I've seen a lot of people have success with the other platforms. Completely up to you. But boy, it's made a big presence in the job market. So it is a valuable tool to learn about and consider participating in. There are 4 generations out there in the workplace right now, too. So think about those older folks are probably staying a little longer than maybe they anticipated. The younger folks in the job market are wishing those older folks would get out of the way so they can move up the ladder. I've heard that called the gray ceiling. The younger workers can't move up because the older workers are still there. But think about those 4 generations working together. In fact, think about your own family. Think about if you've got 4 generations represented around your dinner table or at the holiday table or wherever you might have a gathering, and think then about the different communication styles, the different ways of approaching things, the different values, the different priorities. All of those things are happening in the workplace too. So it's become this hodgepodge of a bunch of different people with all kinds of different views on things that are now having to come together and learn how to work together. So that's happening out there. And you might be interviewing with someone who is a lot younger than you or a lot older than you. So being able to feel comfortable with that's very important. I don't have to tell you that technology has made a huge change on things. I mean, think about it, the way we communicate with each other, we can email easily. And in fact, in job search, we email our resumes, right? We attach our resume to a quick email and send it off to somebody who requested it. We upload our resumes on company websites nowadays, and off it goes into the hinterlands of the internet, and hopefully we'll hear back from somebody. We also have information at our fingertips, right? We can do all kinds of research even before we get into an interview. We can research not only the company, but we can research that position. We can find out about what salaries are acceptable for that position. We can even research the person that we're going to be interviewing with. We can look them up on LinkedIn, for instance, and find out all about the people that we're going to be meeting. Video, that part of technology, has come a long way. And not only are we seeing video resumes where you can have a video clip of yourself introducing yourself in a resume kind of format, but also more and more popular are becoming video interviews. You might be asked by a company to record your answers through your webcam, and they will send you a link to a website that enables you to do that. You might have a Skype interview. So that's becoming more and more popular. So yes, technology has definitely changed the way the job market works. And that's only a few things that I've listed there that technology has affected. So we have a high-tech world. And on the flip side of that, you'll see the next one talks about how because of that, I think we have a much less personal contact kind of world. We have a low-touch world. So we have opportunities there, if you will look at it that way, to make more personal contact. And an example I'm thinking of is, and I feel so disappointed every time I hear this, I hear from hiring managers and I hear from people that are interviewing exclaiming about how they were astounded that they were the only person that sent a thank you note. Or the hiring manager will say, I called them back because they were the only one that did that. Or I'm surprised I didn't get any thank you. And we only have to do a thank you email. That's all we have to do. That's perfectly acceptable. So the hint I'm giving you right there is you can make yourself stand out by adding a personal touch, like a thank you email, or my gosh, a handwritten thank you note that goes through the US mail. What a concept. So anywhere that you can add that personal touch is going to make a difference in the job market, in the job search world, because there's not a whole lot of that happening. The pace of change is astounding. I just read that the top 10 in-demand jobs weren't even in existence 10 or 12 years ago. Things are changing that quickly. We also have something called job hopping happening out there. And it used to be that we would look at a resume, say 20 years ago or so, and notice that somebody had only been in a series of jobs for maybe 3 to 5 years and think, oh my gosh, what's with this person's loyalty? They're going to be a job hopper. Well, nowadays, the opposite is true. We look at the length of time somebody might have been in their career, 10, 15, even longer years, and people are thinking, wow, I wonder why they stayed so long. It's perfectly normal and acceptable these days to hop around to different jobs. And in fact, I just read something else the other day that said the newest or youngest folks in the job market will have 10 to 14 jobs by the time they hit age 38. It's become that popular and that acceptable to move from job to job where the opportunities are. We're in a very, very mobile kind of culture these days. So those are some of the things that are different. Not by any means is this to be a complete list, but these are the things that are most prevalent changes out there in the job market. You know, there are still some very important things that are the same, though, and I want to talk to you about those things that are still very crucial and very important skills and items, such as the resume and the cover letter, to have on hand. That is still the way you introduce yourself, still the way that you make a showing out there in the job search world is through a very professional, well put together resume. That has not changed. And I added, this afternoon, I added the words cover letters on there because people ask me a lot, do you think I need a cover letter? Do people even write or read cover letters. And I don't know if people are reading them. I've seen some surveys that more and more hiring managers are getting back to reading cover letters. But I tell you what, I'm an advocate for them because it gives you an opportunity to introduce yourself in what I was saying earlier, a more personal way. A cover letter gives you a chance to speak in full sentences, to share your personality a little bit more than just your resume, which is very concise, short, bullet point type information. So I'm a big advocate for cover letters. I think, yes, they're absolutely still important. What's still important? Networking. Getting yourself out, meeting people, talking to people, thinking about who you know, and then who do they know, and making introductions and building a web, a contact web of people that you know that you can tap into their experience and advice on. Experiences, your real life experiences. What you've actually done in the workplace that you can then relay to a potential employer and tell them what you've done and how you can benefit them in the future. So your experiences matter, and those success stories matter. Your communication skills, absolutely, even more so now. Thinking about our low touch world, being able to carry on a conversation, being confident, having good eye contact, good body language, those communication skills that help you in any kind of social interaction are more important than ever. And then connection, relationships, which relates to networking, but it's getting even deeper into connecting with people, following up with people, building those relationships, and understanding that that is so crucial. We can't just run into a person on the street and say, hey, do you know of any jobs? And they say, yeah, here's an idea, and we're on our way. Now it's about building relationships and saying, what advice do you have for me? Hey, can I touch base with you periodically? Hey, do you know somebody that you might be able to introduce me to? And by the way, what can I do to help you? It's a mutually beneficial type of relationship. And then finally, being able to effectively market yourself. That has never changed. Being able to promote yourself confidently, give examples, talk about what it is you do and how well you do it and how you can benefit a future employer. So those are some of the very important things that have not changed over the years. And I like to include this little graphic here because it speaks to the fact that some of those skills I just showed you, that networking, the communication skills, are ever important because where are the jobs found? The jobs are found through networking. They are those hidden jobs that you find out about by talking to people you know, making connections, building relationships. You'll notice that 75% of the jobs represented here are those hidden jobs, and the rest of them are job postings, recruiters, other published kinds of ads, help wanted signs, etc. But by being able to use those communication skills, getting out there and networking, talking about yourself professionally, confidently, you are tapping into where those other jobs are found in that hidden job market. It looks like our sound is cutting in and out. I'll try to hold my head a little steadier here. That might be part of the problem. Sorry about that. Let's talk a little bit about the marketing mindset. And one of the big changes that I have found working in this field myself is the amount of marketing terms that we use nowadays when we're talking about promoting ourselves out in the job world, job market. So I want to ask you to think about a company that you're familiar with, to think about maybe it's Apple, maybe it's Nike, maybe it's ABC Window Washing Company. All of those companies, what they have in common is their marketing strategy or the components of a marketing strategy. So I want to ask you, can you successfully do these things to help yourself? Can you effectively sell yourself? So self-promotion. Can you get out there and talk about yourself? Can you get out there and introduce yourself and relay your successes and accomplishments to those potential employers? And by the way, while I'm on this topic, I want to just let you know that many people tell me, Debbie, I am so uncomfortable with that because I feel like I'm bragging. Well, let me tell you, this is the time to be bragging. And there's a famous quote, I don't remember who said it, but it goes something like, it ain't bragging if it's true. So what I tell people is, think about those successes you've had on the job. Think of those accomplishments. Think of those achievements that you can talk about and tell your potential employers about. That's not bragging, folks. That is telling the truth, and that's letting them in on what you can then do for them in the future. How about your marketing brochure? That is the way to think about your resume, and perhaps your cover letter too. That can be a part of the whole marketing document. An introduction of who you are and what you do and why they should go further by interviewing you or by meeting with you. How about your personal brand? We talk about companies like Nike having the swoosh stripe and BMW having their logo and their slogans. And how about you? Do you have a brand? Do you have a slogan? Some people have a slogan. Do you have something that makes you stand out? And I would encourage you to think about what that is. USP is another term that they use in marketing. Unique selling proposition. What is that about you? And some good questions to ask yourself when you're thinking about your brand is, what am I known for? What is my reputation? What do people think of when they think of me in the workplace? What am I able to do like nobody else? And that is where you get closer and closer to defining what it is your brand is. How about your target audience? Who will be reading your marketing brochure? And are you spending some time getting to know about them? Remember, I mentioned earlier, you could research the people you're going to be interviewing with through LinkedIn. Companies spend hundreds, thousands of millions of dollars on demographics, getting to know who we are, right? Who their potential customers are. You need to do the same thing. Think about who your market is, who your audience is, and get to know them so you can appeal to them. And many times in job search, that's by studying their job description, studying their company website, and learning what they are saying, their keywords, their language, talking in terms that they will understand. Messaging, that's another item to be familiar with, and that is, can you articulate who you are and what your goals are? Can you articulate out there what your benefits, the benefits are to bringing you in the door? Being able to clearly send that message. How about when Uncle Joe says, hey, Susan, what's going on with you? What are you looking for? Are you able to answer that question and help Uncle Joe to help you? So it could be anybody you're talking to. Your messaging is very important. WIFM, there's another term from the marketing world. What's in it for me? That's what we as customers are thinking. So companies are thinking from our standpoint, what's in it for my customer? What am I going to give them? What are the benefits that they will reap? You need to think about that too. What's in it for your reader to go on and interview you? What's in it for your target audience? What's in it for them? What will they benefit from by getting to know more about you? Features and benefits, that's always a big subject for marketing, is thinking about what are the features, not just what do you do, but what are the benefits? How well do you do what you do? And then, of course, negotiation, which comes into talking about your value, what you bring to the table, why you are worth what you are looking to negotiate for as far as a salary goes. So there again are some marketing terms so that you can become your own marketing agency and be able to talk about yourself, put yourself in terms of a product. You are the product. You are an important product that you are now promoting. You know, I mentioned negotiation relates to you being able to understand your value and also being able to articulate that. That comes from you having a very clear and focused direction, knowing where you're going. And that comes from knowing yourself. So I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute here, because I think step number one in any job search is getting to know yourself, or reacquainting yourself with yourself. So here's a list of things I would encourage you to go through and create a list of: your values, your interests, your skills, your strengths, and knowing your weaknesses. You may be asked that in an interview, by the way. What are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So again, having awareness around that. What are your wants and needs? What are your accomplishments? And what are your characteristics? In other words, what are some adjectives that describe you? Let me back up here to interests and skills. I always tell people, if you have a job description or make a list of your skills, then go back and highlight those things that you do that you enjoy the most, that you are passionate about, or that you love about your job, or that you have loved about your job in the past. Where your skills and your interests intersect are where your strengths usually lie. And that's what you want to take into your next job. That's what you want your next job to be focused on, is where you can use your strengths, and that will ensure that you are happy in your work. So I can't say enough about taking time to assess yourself, asking yourself some simple questions like this. Blank paper and pen. What are my values? What are my priorities? What am I interested in doing? What do I want in my next job? What are my accomplishments that I've done for other people? I think that by doing this, you can't help but be true to yourself and then open the door to those next great opportunities. And another exercise I like to encourage people to do, I've got it listed here on this slide, is my ideal job. And this is you taking pen and paper again, blank document, blank piece of paper, and thinking about the characteristics of your ideal job. What do you want it to include? So, could be things like the location. How long is your commute? What are the values of that company? What's their mission statement? What's the dress code? What are your coworkers like? Who are your customers? What are the hours? What are the products? What are the services? What's the structure or the size of the company? All of those kinds of details you can think about, put on a list. And then as those job offers are coming in, what you've got is a template that you can lay side by side and see how close you're coming to landing that ideal job. And then it also gives you some ideas on the types of things that you're willing to give and take on. You might have an interview with a fabulous company that might not exactly have the hours that you're looking for, or it might be a little further of a commute for you, but you might be willing to give on that because they're able to give you something else, great job satisfaction, or good benefits, or daycare, or something of that nature. So making that list, and then that gives you a template, gives you something to compare to as those job offers are coming in. So I encourage you to do that self-assessment. Let me take you back here to my list. And you can do an internet search too of maybe values inventory. That's one that I've seen. You can get some ideas of adjectives that you would use to describe yourself. Ask people that you know, that you've worked with, how would you describe me on the job? Just get a good list of things going that help you reacquaint yourself with yourself, and then work on this ideal job and see how close you can come throughout your job search. So self-assessment, I say, is number one. Even if you have a short amount of time that you need to move into that next job, take time to do some of this self-assessment so you can get closer to what it is would be an ideal situation for yourself. After you do some of that assessment, now it's time to start thinking of your strategy and the pieces of your strategy. Just like any project you've ever worked on, be that planning a holiday party or your next vacation, your job search warrants at least that kind of attention, that same attention and planning that you put into any of those other things. And I know so many people don't do this. They think that the job is going to be found from behind their computer and they get on the job boards every day and that's it. There are so many things to add to your job search strategy to make it more effective, to make it fun even, to make it exciting, to make it challenging in a good way. And I want to share with you some of those great things that you can make part of your strategy. So first of all, I've broken it down into a couple of pieces, very proactive types of activities. So proactive being you taking things in your own hands and making things happen, in other words. So Here's a list of things that you might consider. Networking, touched on that already. Getting yourself out, talking to people. Having a list of target companies instead of waiting for those companies to advertise something. How about you go to them, or you do some research on them, find out what's happening, see who you know. Have a list of companies you want to work for, regardless of the fact if they're advertising or not. Having an online presence, making sure you're able to be found online. Recruiters, again, are going to be looking for you online, and LinkedIn being the #1 place that they will go. And then there's some other things I'll talk about in a moment you might do online. Recruiters can be a very proactive piece of your strategy. Notice I have an asterisk there beside that and job fairs because I have that on both lists. It all depends on your approach to recruiters. If you are going to sit back and wait for a recruiter to call you, that's not proactive. But if you are pursuing finding those recruiters that could best help you by doing some networking, by researching them on LinkedIn, by building a relationship with them, that's more proactive. So you can take that into your own hands and build relationships with people that might be able to assist you, such as recruiters. Being a part of associations related to your industry. Volunteering, there's something very proactive. Getting yourself out, working with an organization you feel strongly about, that you want to help. You're also out there showing off your skills some, right? You are doing things that you're capable of doing. You might be able to utilize some of your favorite skills in this volunteer opportunity. You're meeting people. That can be a very proactive approach. Job fairs. Again, those can be very reactive, very passive if you just show up and distribute your resumes. But how about if you show up and engage in conversation and ask questions and meet people and follow up? That's very proactive. Start thinking about your daily interactions. Where do you go every day or every week? Who do you talk to on a regular basis? And starting then to talk to them a little bit more about your job search. Start talking to them about what they do and who they know and what kind of advice they might have for you. So start looking around at who you see on a regular basis and thinking about bringing your job search into the conversation. I have references on this list too, because there's something very proactive you can do with your references, and that is not just update the contact information, but reach out to them. Make sure that you've got the right information, but then touch base with them about your job search, where you're going, what your goals are, and get on the same page with them. Do a little networking with them. Talk about and get their advice. Talk to them about who might be calling them. Fill them in on where you've shared their name as a reference and how they can best help you. Do a little coaching of your references. That's a very proactive approach as well. Taking it a little bit further, here's just a list of ideas that you might employ for making more of an in-person kind of presence known. Talked about the meetings, classes, seminars, conferences, alumni events, community organizations, volunteering, religious groups. Some churches have job search support groups. Those are great for getting yourself out. Meetup groups. How about your doctor's office, the hair salon, the barbershop, the coffee shop, etc., etc. All of these places are places where you might run into people who can best help you, and you be able to utilize your communication skills, your networking skills, and be very proactive and have an approach to utilize these kinds of contacts. Remember that pie chart I showed you a few slides back? This is how you tap into that hidden job market, by doing things like this, by uncovering opportunities. And let me make a note here too, that those classes, seminars, workshops, they don't all have to be related to your work either. They could be hobby type meetings, or they could be classes you've always wanted to learn about, quilting or a book group or whatnot. Those kinds of things can be opportunities too for you to uncover what's going on out there in the job market. Let me touch on your online presence here briefly. LinkedIn profile, I've talked about that, and other social media you might choose to utilize personal website. Many employees or job seekers are putting together their own personal website related to what they can do for a company, the benefits that they bring to the table, their accomplishments. And more that's getting popular. I saw a statistic not long ago that about 55% of hiring managers surveyed said yes, they thought that was a cutting edge tool for a job seeker to have. And job seekers love it too. It's a great idea. However, not very many people are doing it. So you might consider it, having a specific website for yourself that is all about what you do as an employee and the benefit you bring. Some people are active on blogs and maybe create their own blog or comment on other people's blogs related to the industry or related to the area that they are interested in getting a job in, making sure that it's always professional and positive, and then participating in discussions online. LinkedIn has great groups. You could join groups and join in the discussions, other ways for you to have an online presence and be found. Let me switch gears and talk about some of the reactive types of things that should also be employed in your job search strategy, but the focus being on these proactive, the job boards and the company website. So yes, going out to Indeed or going out to Monster or going out to dice.com for technical jobs. Taking a look at those. Company websites, their job boards, but not focusing on that, doing it once or twice a week, checking in periodically to see what's going on out there, but then spending more of your time on those proactive approaches. There again, recruiters and job fairs, again, if you are just going to show up and pass out your resume or just wait for the phone to ring from that recruiter, that's pretty reactive. Agencies can also be reactive. You're waiting for them to call you with temporary or project assignments. Applying to ads, applying to help wanted signs, those all kind of set you up. If those were all you did in a very passive, reactive way, that would set you up for being in the waiting game. So employ both reactive and proactive methods to have a very successful, effective job search. Let me move forward here and talk about some of the tools that you might need as you are out promoting yourself, marketing yourself. You need to have some things that you can leave with people. And one of those, of course, is your resume. As you are going out for interviews, as you are applying for jobs, of course, you have a marketing brochure, and that's your resume. And here are some very basic guidelines. We could do a whole session all day talking about resumes, but here are some basic things you need to know about an effective resume. 2 pages maximum. And I would say 2 pages in most cases. When I see a 1-page resume, I get suspicious that it's either in too small of a font for me to read or it's not enough detail, especially if you've been in the workforce for a while. So nothing wrong with 2 pages. Think about a 2-page resume. Use a simple font, no smaller than 10, no larger than 14 usually. There are 4 font styles that you might consider. Arial, Calibri, Cambria, Tahoma. Very simple, easy to read. Clear, concise information, lots of white space and bullet points. So the reader's eyes just flow right over through those pages. You want to start with a summary. Anybody remember what we used to have at the top of our resumes, right under our contact information? Remember that first category? Anybody? Type in there if you remember. Randy's typing. A couple people are typing. Objective. That's it. We used to have an objective statement. Sometimes, Emily, yes, education could be at the top, but objective usually is how we started our resumes. Seeking a dynamic position within a growing company that utilizes my background and my skills. Well, that was kind of all about me, wasn't it? Where nowadays we need to think of our reader and put together a summary that talks about what it is they need to know about me. They need to know my characteristics and my strengths and how I can best help them. So we outline that in our summary these days and highlight our hard and soft skills. Also, you don't have to have your whole chronological history of your career in your resume. You can detail only the last 10 or 15 years. And if you want to tell them where you've been prior to 15 years, that's fine. You can have another section that says other employment includes, and just list the name of the company and the title and the years you were there. But it's no longer necessary that you go back to day one and give a chronological accounting of your whole career. So you want to make this a very relevant, notice that word I have in bold there, make it relevant to your reader. And sometimes they do not need to know that you worked at Starbucks or Barnes & Noble or Ralph's grocery store when you were in school. You don't have to go back that far. I also say here, quantify, use measurements wherever possible. The number of people, the number of dollars, the amount of time, wherever you can measure something, put in quantifiers as well. Notice down at the bottom in red bold, I say, think accomplishments versus job description. That's the content of your resume these days. Not just what you did. And I used to say I supervised, managed, was responsible for, and I would interchange those things throughout my resume. Nowadays, it's using action verbs. What did you do, and how well did you do it? Maybe you created monthly reports that allowed the management team to save thousands of dollars each month on their vendor costs. Being able to say things like that is much more important these days than just saying that you were responsible for monthly reports. So think about your accomplishments versus your job description statement. Now, that is just a tiny nutshell of what goes into a resume, but those are some good things to help you get started. Here's some other marketing documents you might think about. A business card to leave behind when you're out networking. Leave with Uncle Joe after you leave the holiday dinner. Here's some information. Look at that. It's got a phone number as well as a LinkedIn address, so people can go right out and look at your LinkedIn profile. Then we've got a networking brief. I don't see this used very often, but a very important tool that you can use when you're out networking with people. Give them a little information. Here's my background, and here's what I'm looking for in the future. Help them think of you in the future and what kind of advice and information you're looking for from them. Just a couple of ideas. Then some verbal tools. A 30-second commercial. How do you respond when somebody says, tell me about yourself? Or, hey, what are you up to these days? Being able to articulate, again, who you are and where you're headed in the future. As well as when somebody says, why did you leave or what happened? You need to be able to articulate that very positively. The truth is, well, the company was bought by another company. My department was redundant and my position was eliminated. Now I'm looking forward to, and you take your listener on a journey to what happened, but where I'm going in the future, and help them focus on helping you get to where you're going in the future. And then, of course, your voicemail messages. Being prepared when you need to leave a voicemail message, be that for someone you are following up with after an interview, somebody you're trying to connect with for networking, letting them know who you are, why you're calling, and what you want them to expect in the future. Be that maybe a phone call tomorrow, I'll call you back tomorrow, or I'm going to send you an email, or I'd like to connect with you on LinkedIn. So there's some ideas of some verbal tools, and I would say take the time to create a script around each of these and practice, practice, practice. Here's some other things that you will need during your job search. Everybody say, oh, isn't he cute? That little dog with the red and blue U of A envelope right there. Cover letters, thank you letters, follow-up notes, invitations to meet with people or connect with people, drafting out some correspondence that helps you accomplish these things. Look at that last one, turn down responses. There's a very, very unique way and a unique tool for your job search toolkit. And the reason I have that on there is because it's very unique. Let's say you get an email from somebody, a company that you've been interviewing with, and they say, I'm sorry, we chose another candidate. Thank you so much. Are you just going to let that sit there? How about be a little bit more proactive and respond to that with a very gracious thank you for letting me know, because many companies don't. Thank you for letting me know. And by the way, should another opportunity arise, I would love to be considered for it. I'd like to stay in touch with you. May I connect with you on LinkedIn? Wow, talk about gracious and professional and wanting to carry out a connection or build a relationship. You never know where those kinds of things will take you. So there's some ideas on job search correspondence for your toolkit. let's talk about, again, thinking about your job search as being a project. And when you were working or have been working, we approached our weeks with to-do lists, right? We have a plan of action. We know where we're going. We have a project plan, maybe. We have dedicated workspace and dedicated tools. Same is true for your job search. You need to be organized, and you need to think about what it is that works for you. Be that a spreadsheet, a wall calendar, your Outlook calendar, an app on your phone, a website, a daily planner, or good old-fashioned binders, folders, pens, and pencils. Whatever works for you, determine what that is, and then start making your plans. And here's an example of what a weekly plan might look like. Doing some reactive things like Monday morning when everybody's getting back to work, not always the best time to make your phone calls. Do some of your reactive activities there, and then you add in all of those proactive activities that you're going to do as well. Having breakfast with former colleagues, attending a job search support group, meeting with new contacts, doing some volunteer work, and then come Friday afternoon, you are planning out your next week, right? That's how we would do it in an ideal world. I do mine on Sundays, maybe, and sometimes Monday mornings. But planning out your next week is crucial, as well as having goals. And I talk here about having SMART goals. Some of you are familiar with that acronym. They are specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timeline-based. So you can have a goal that says, all right, I will network more. That's my goal. Well, how about you make it a little more specific and you say, I will make calls on Tuesday until I have 3 meetings set up. Much, much better. Gives you a timeline, gives you some ideas of how many meetings you're aiming for. I will research target companies. Okay, that's a good goal. However, you could make it a more specific goal by saying, I will spend 2 hours researching my top 5 companies before Friday. And then you know what even makes this more successful when you're setting goals is to have a goal-setting partner or an accountability partner, somebody else who's also setting goals. Maybe somebody you know that's also in job search, or somebody that's a big supporter of yours that's willing to spend some time with you, say Friday afternoon, going over what you accomplished this week, what your goals were, and what your goals are for next week. And then you report into each other every Friday afternoon or whatever the designated time is. Here's how I did. How'd you do? Oh, what happened? How come that didn't play out like you expected? It's just holding each other accountable. It's not beating each other up when you don't make those goals. It's just saying, okay, yeah, things happen, but what are you going to do next? Or how are you going to improve upon that? So having a support system, having a support team is always very helpful. You might consider having an accountability partner. Last but not least, by no means least, is one of the most important aspects of your job search, and that is maintaining a positive attitude. As I mentioned, looking at your job search as a project is very important, and you can, by employing some of these things we're talking about, make it exciting, make it fun even. Think about the new people you're going to be meeting, about the opportunities you're uncovering, and the ideas you're going to get by just getting yourself out and doing some of these very proactive, action-oriented type things we're talking about in your strategy. Here's a list of ways to help you stay motivated as you're moving through your week. So, a positive mindset, surrounding yourself with positive, supportive people, a supportive, positive environment. I tell people, turn off the news. Don't read anything related to the economy, the downturns, or companies like, don't read that stuff. You need to be positive. You are creating your own reality. You are creating your own future. Stay positive. Keep yourself to a limited amount of time online. Remember, the best, most effective job searches are not found behind a computer. Get yourself outside for some fresh air, a new environment, a new pace. Just take a walk. See people, visit people, talk to people. Take breaks and incorporate those breaks into your weekly plan, by the way. Schedule an appointment with yourself every afternoon at 2 o'clock for a half-hour walk or whatever it might be. stop and reward yourself. After you've accomplished some of those goals, you set up those 3 networking meetings. Okay, time to go out to Cold Stone and buy yourself that ice cream you've been thinking about, or take yourself to a movie or whatever it might be, spending some time with a friend. And keep learning. Take classes. Ask people questions. This doesn't have to cost you any money. None of these things do, to help you stay motivated. But keep learning, stay open to what's out there. Stay open to what opportunities are out there. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Everybody's been in job search before, and we're all social animals. We like to help each other. We like to give advice and input. Don't be afraid to keep learning by asking for those things from people that you know and expanding your network. Remember that your attitude is really everything. I have heard stories constantly throughout my career about hiring managers that will hire somebody with the best attitude over somebody that may have 100% of the skills that are needed. Attitude is that important. And not only is it the attitude that you're displaying when you're interviewing, but it's the attitude you have about yourself. And I kind of want to wrap up and leave you with these words of wisdom. One of my favorite quotes from Wayne Dyer is, "We teach others how to treat us." So it's your attitude about yourself, about your situation, about the strengths you have, about how your job search is going, about your reactions to being laid off or your reactions to being turned down. People are getting ideas from you on how you think about yourself, and they're responding accordingly. So if you're talking down about yourself and about your job search, then so will they. They will chime in knowing that, oh gosh, you're probably going to be talking about how sad things are. Then let me tell you how sad things are out there for me too. You need to be around those supportive, positive people, and it starts with you. It starts with how you think about yourself. And that goes to that assessment, your values, your strengths, your accomplishments, reminding yourself of what you bring to the table so that you can then be your best self and get out there and put your best foot forward in those interviews. Not only will you be giving great first impressions, which, yes, is related to how you look, but more importantly, how you think and feel about yourself, teaching people how to treat you. We are moving into our wrap-up section here, so we'll have some time for some questions here. I just want to leave you with a few reminders to be aware of what's happening. Be aware of those changes that are going on in the job market, and then be adaptable to those changes. Have a marketing mindset. Think about yourself as a product and having those marketing brochures and being able to talk about your brand. What is unique to you? Taking time to self-assess, determine your priorities, and then determine your direction. Spend time focusing on all those proactive approaches we talked about, taking action, taking control, and then, of course, mix in some of those reactive activities as well. Build out your toolkit with, of course, your resume, your cover letters, your thank you notes, what you're going to say, your scripts for how you introduce yourself, what messages you leave on voicemail. And then, of course, get yourself organized, set goals, have an accountability partner, be positive and motivated, and then you will be able to land that great job. Remember the quote we talked about at the beginning, a job that you don't have to escape from, the right job, a job that you love, like Steve Jobs reminded us of, and then that dream job, not being afraid to dream and create that ideal situation. I want to remind you, too, that job search is a temporary situation, and to remember that you have landed a job before, you will land a job again. We have completed our content from the presentation, so Susan, we can open it up for questions now before we come up to our hour here and see if there's anything that we should address and talk about.
There are. So many things. Thank you so much, Debbie. This was really, really good. And I loved the distinction you made between proactive and reactive approaches to the job search, because I think that's probably the biggest mistake people make, is focusing just on those reactive things. So thank you for that. So we did have a couple of questions come in, and anybody on the webinar, feel free to type your questions in at any time now. I'll start with this one that came in from Garrett. It's kind of about how to work with recruiters. Is it acceptable to message recruiters on LinkedIn? And, from my perspective, since you're somebody who worked in recruiting, I wonder if you have any tips to share generally on working with recruiters.
Oh, yes, I have some input on that. And just to speak to your question about connecting with recruiters on LinkedIn. Yes, absolutely. I mean, do your research and find out who they are and what they deal with. Some of them have very specific specialties. But yes, I would definitely send messages to them. And if they don't know of a recruiter that can help you, or if they can't help you, maybe they know of someone who can. So it's asking them for advice and information in that regard. The thing to remember about recruiters, Garrett, is that they are working at the behest of their clients. Their client companies are dictating their priorities. So that's why I say they should be part of a proactive approach as well, because many times people go to a recruiter and say, great, we hit it off. They said they might have something next week, and it's been 2 weeks, I haven't heard anything. It's probably because their priorities changed, or because the client got very, very specific. No, we need this skill, not that skill. So it's up to you then to stay in touch with them. So make it a two-way street, build relationships with recruiters, and don't be disgruntled. Just know that they are part of your strategy, not the whole strategy, and have good open conversations with them. That's my recommendation. Thanks for that question.
Thank you. So here's a question about how you could market yourself if you've been out of the job search for a while and out of the job market for a while, for example, as a stay-at-home mom. How do you turn that time off into a positive, or at least not a negative about you?
Great question. Thanks for that. There are definitely situations like that, and it might be being a stay-at-home mom, it might be taking care of another family member. And you do need to, that was a good insight you had there, to turn that into a positive. So what you think about are the things that you did. What did you accomplish during that time? Maybe you raised some very good people, some kids that turned into great people. Think about classes you took, things that you've learned about yourself, what you've learned about your strengths, and how then now you can benefit a company utilizing those strengths and those things that you know about yourself. I think this is especially an important time if you're coming back after a gap in your employment, is to do that self-assessment and think about, what do I bring to the table? What can I do for someone? And sure, it maybe have been 10 years since you worked in an office, but look at all the things you've done over that 10 years, and maybe volunteer work and skills you've picked up. Maybe you're great on the computer. Maybe you've got some high-tech skills that somebody could utilize, or you've got a great personality and great communication skills. You'd be a great front office person. So again, do that self-assessment and think about what benefits you bring to the table and turn it into a positive, things that you've learned, things you know about yourself, and come across confidently.
You. So here's a question I got by email from Diane, and she says, I just sold my business. I'm 61 years old, but I still want to work for 5 to 10 more years. What do I put and not put on my resume? How do I get an interview? I look and work quite a bit younger than I am, and I think a face-to-face interview would give me a chance.
So I think if I understood that correctly, it's someone who's looking to work for a few more years before they retire. Is that right? And maybe interviewing with someone who's a lot younger than them. Is that what the essence of that was, Susan? I'm not sure I heard you all the way through there.
Yes, I think so. Someone who's 61 years old, just sold her business, but wants to keep working.
Okay, gotcha. Okay. So again, it goes back to the benefits. And I know that is a stigma that some interviewers might have out there, that, oh, you've owned your own business. you're not going to take direction well, you're going to be, want to get ahead of the game. That's where, again, you have to go in and reassure people. Reassure people that, hey, I am looking to be your employee and I am excited about this opportunity. Again, keep turning things back into positives. What I can do for you. Here are the benefits that I bring to the table. Sure, I owned my own business, but I'm done with that. Now I want to help you. And here's what I've learned over the years, and I'm looking forward to doing that for you. And having examples, having concrete stories about, especially, let's even think about the stay-at-home mom that's coming back into the workplace. Stories that you can tell that the interviewer can relate to and say, oh yeah, I can see how you would really help us with that. Same with the former business owner coming back into the workplace. Here's what I did in the past. Here's how I think it relates to you and what you can do. So having some concrete stories and examples of your successes, I think that's very important.
Thank you.
What else?
So here's a really, really good question that we got from Jared. And he says, do you have any additional suggestions for trying to start a new career in a new city that you don't currently live in? Away some of those networking and proactive measures that you talk about?
Good question. And I think it's a slightly different approach. I think that you can still utilize some of those proactive methods. They're just going to be long distance, or they're going to be via email or phone. Not just all over the computer, but making phone calls too. So let's say you start with your network, asking them, hey, who do you know that lives in Cincinnati? I'm looking to move there and get into this particular industry. And you just start building that web of contacts until you can get into learning more and more information. So research is a huge part of that kind of job search, is doing the research and continuing to build contacts. But I think more and more you can get into those proactive things. You'll learn of people that you can talk to. You might even make a trip there and ask to meet with people, buy people cups of coffee to pick their brains, etc. So I think the proactive methods will eventually come, but it starts with research. And building that network.
Yeah, I think it's really great advice to consider asking, who do you know that lives in a city? And I think that works also if you're trying to network into an industry or a company and you don't think you know anybody there or in that industry. You know so many people, they probably know someone who can help you. So getting into the habit of asking the people that you have relationships with, who do you know that would know anything about X, is a really, really great tip.
Exactly.
Okay, so here is a interesting, very specific question that came in. Do you think that the hidden job market is different, maybe a smaller percentage of the jobs that are available, if you see a company post all the time for jobs that require a certain type of skill set? Do you think there's greater opportunity for a hire, not just through the hidden market?
If I see a company that's continuing to advertise those things, that's a good question. I would say if a company is really advertising for something and adamant about the skills they're looking for, and you see it continuing to crop up, I would say that's kind of giving you some clues as to what they're doing. So let's say you don't have exactly the skills that they're advertising for. Maybe it gives you a clue as to what else they might need. So maybe you're in management and they're hiring for hands-on technical support. Well, maybe if you're a manager, if they're adding to their staff, they're going to need management. So there's still an opportunity to tap into that hidden if they're not advertising for the job that you are looking for. So I would still go the route of what connections you can make and who do you know, and approaching people and making inroads into that company. But that's a good question. I still think it's worth utilizing your contacts and your network, even if they are advertising like crazy for something. There might be other opportunities that they're not even aware of yet that they need. So go ahead and utilize the reactive methods, but don't forget those proactive too. You never know what's behind the scenes, what they aren't saying. So I would utilize both.
Always be networking, always be proactive. Okay,
yes,
so as we wind down here, here's a final question. Do you have any tips for someone who says, if you've been in a professional job for 12 years and the industry has gone south, you're in your 50s, how can you go through the process if you can't bring money or clients to the table in a declining industry?
Okay, so the industry has gone south. So again, I think that's looking at your strengths, looking at what you can do. So it's probably looking at, we call them transferable skills. So what are the greatest skills that you have? What are the greatest accomplishments that you have had based on those skills? And what other industries would benefit from them? So thinking about where you're going to go next as far as another industry. So you might, again, I would go back to networking, but also thinking about related industries or maybe vendors that you dealt with in that industry that's no longer as viable. Thinking about support type industries or companies you dealt with on the outside, third-party companies. Thinking about maybe that step away from your network, maybe people that aren't in your same industry, but maybe related, and start there and start fishing around for what's happening. What are some other industries that I might move to that would appreciate my skills? And then it's just breaking yourself out of that box, so to speak, thinking about who else is out there? Who else is going to benefit by what I do? I know that's a tough one when the industry has turned around. I've helped a lot of folks in the mortgage industry over the last several years, and it was all about repackaging, so to speak, themselves. There's another marketing term, by the way. Thinking about the skills they bring, the skills they've developed, and who else would benefit from that. It doesn't have to be in the mortgage industry. It might be somebody totally unrelated for me to bring my good customer service and research skills to. Who is that? So breaking yourself out of the box and doing some research there. Hope that was helpful.
Definitely. So we're a little bit over time, but do you have time for one more question?
Okay, sure.
So what do you think about uploading resumes to monster.com or Indeed?
I don't like that idea, and I'll tell you why. Because I think resumes need to be customized to the jobs that you are applying to. I mean, that's a very reactive approach, and I know a lot of people do that, and then you play the waiting game. But I think you have so much more benefit by applying individually and being able to customize that resume. When I say customize, I don't mean do a major rewrite for every job. I mean use the keywords, change things around so that the bullet points really speak to what you can do for each reader of that resume so that you can appeal to them, speaking their language. It goes to that target market. What's in it for them? They need to know. And if they're going to pull your resume off of monster.com, you're decreasing your odds of getting a call back, I think, because you haven't had a chance to really speak to them and to customize. So that's my opinion on that. It's a very reactive approach, and some people do it just to get calls, but I don't think they're going to be the best calls or the best jobs even. My opinion.
Makes sense to me. All right. Well, thank you so much for this. You shared really good advice that kind of got me feeling inspired and made me feel like somebody could be a lot more organized and proactive and achieve a lot more success. So thank you so much for sharing this with us. And I see you have your contact information up here on the screen, so people can reach out to you if they're interested in learning more about your coaching practice or getting your advice on different things.
Absolutely, and feel free to contact me even if you've got a quick question. I'm happy to respond via email and hear from you. Thanks, everybody.